What's going on, everybody, on Facebook Live right now? Everybody that's on YouTube. I do have Ryan Derks in the house, so we're going to get this thing started. So everybody, make sure that you click in. Make sure that you're liking and sharing and posting this. So we're going to get this thing started with the Dre Mac Show.
You just the hottest podcast in your ear right now. This is the Dre Mac Show. Now, without further ado, here is your host, Dre Mac.
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Dre Mac Podcast Show. I am your host, Dre Mac. On a October 30th, almost Halloween, got the election coming up. I told everybody to make sure that Ryan Derks comes back, who is a Republican running for the 5th district for Congress. Ryan, what's going on, man?
Dre, it's good to see you again, and I've got to give you credit, dude. That
now we
intro
don't have
is
any
legit.
audio. We literally just had audio. We had this issue before. Now we got the audio issue again. Let me see if we got him back.
Let me know. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, I'm not hearing audio on my side. Let me take you off the stream. I'm gonna remove you from the stream and bring you back in. Again, if you're listening to this on Facebook or you're on YouTube, make sure you guys are checking it out. Again, this is being streamed live on radio right now, also on the audio version. So let's see if we can get them back in. Let's see. Now we got the audio. Yes.
All right. Good. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I want to give you credit. That intro is legit. It is so dramatic.
Right. I try to remember a good dramatic feel for it.
Yeah, it is.
All right. So we got Ryan back in the house. Again, election day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Make sure you guys are going out. Make sure you're voting. It's very important, especially locally, and that's why I have Ryan in. And I know that you've been really going at your opponent, Emmanuel Cleve, really hard. How have you been able to get in contact with his party? What's going on with that? Why haven't you guys had a debate yet?
Yeah, Dre Mac, don't ask me, man. That's a question for him. I have the personal contact info for his campaign, the non-public one. We send them messages and let them know that we're ready. We've had multiple groups reach out and ask for us to debate. We have had plenty of opportunities, whether it be radio station hosts or different groups across the district that are asking. I've accepted every time, and he says he'll accept, but we're waiting on him. So that's all I can tell you is he doesn't want to debate.
Right, and I know you've been running a couple of campaign ads, and one of them was funny. I just don't know exactly what movie it's from, but he was, I guess, running through the field, and you had, Cleaver's face on there. Do you feel like he's running from you because you're is that what you feel like he's running from you because right now you're the underdog compared to anyone else who ran against him? You're not a career politician. Do you feel like that's the reason why he's kind of, not taking you seriously and not wanting to debate with you?
No, I feel the reason he doesn't want to debate is because I know very, very well what his job is supposed to be, what he has not been doing, and even worse, what he has been doing. And what he has not been doing is producing for our district. Things are still getting worse. I saw an interview with him recently where he said, "You know, my opponent wants to improve education. Maybe he should start at the city council." And I say, "No, no, no, Mr. Cleaver. Maybe you don't know what your job is, but the federal Department of Education is the reason we have No Child Left Behind. It's the
Right.
reason we have Common Core." And these are the things that I don't think he wants to talk about out loud.
And I know you just had a recent interview with Mike Mahoney.
Yeah.
And in that particular interview, when I watched it, he asked you, because I think you guys were on 39th and what you got on 39th and Prospect or 39th Street or close to that area.
No, that one was actually 18th and Vine. Down there,
Oh,
19th and
okay.
Woodland, there's a beautiful old school that's all boarded up.
Right. And I know he asked you, it's something that kind of, I'm not going to lie, kind of stuck in my car. He said, "Why are you over in the East area?" And I was like, "What does it matter?" I mean, he's in the East area, but the way that he said it kind of took me a little off a little bit. And you answered it beautifully. And for anyone who hasn't seen that interview, just check it out. But again, tell the people why you were over and you've been particularly in the East Side area of Kansas City.
Yeah, man, you're right. That was a total gotcha question. And the part of this campaign is like, I've got nothing to hide. The reason I keep going through the East of Troost, predominantly black community, is because I grew up in the suburbs. I know that story. I can speak that language. I don't know what what it's like growing up east of Troost, where gun crime is the only record being broken, where homelessness and drug use and prostitution is going crazy, where there are 10,000 abandoned homes, right? Those abandoned homes, man, those aren't up in North Kansas City. Those aren't over on Ward Parkway. Those are all right in that neighborhood. I don't know what it's like growing up in a neighborhood where you're forced to go to Kansas City School District, which is just a very, very low quality school district. So that's why I keep walking up and down those streets, because those people vote. And I need to ask them, you guys, why do you keep
Right.
voting Democrat? Maybe, hear my ideas. What do you think about these ideas? Have you considered this way? And I'm telling you, man, there is a lot of support out there.
And just watching just your Facebook page and watching a lot of the times that you're out in those areas, are you getting the same? Because you're really hitting the streets. Are you getting the same? Um, how can I say this? You're getting the same support from the rural areas that then you are, compared to the inner city and the black area. You're getting that same type of support out there.
Yeah, for sure. So during the primary, I was almost entirely out there in the rural areas.
Hmm.
You guys wouldn't believe they're having just as many problems. A lot of their jobs, manufacturing, went out to China. The USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture, is completely turning the screws on our farmers. I don't know if you know it, Dre Mac, but China and Brazil are this close to owning the entire food supply in America. So yeah, I actually know a lot of people out there as well. So fortunately, I don't have to keep driving an hour and a half out there. I have them on speed dial already. So yeah, I've got a lot of support out there as well.
And one thing that I was looking at is the young lady from Fox 4 asked you, would you be able to be bipartisan? Speak on that, because I don't think, and you said it just recently. You said a lot of people, why are you continue just to vote Democrat? Why are we looking at both sides and picking the right candidate
Yeah.
that exuberates your agenda? And if your agenda is, fixing our neighborhood, black empowerment, making sure that we start to close this wealth gap, what can you speak to that as far as bipartisanship or just being a progressive, so you could be able to work on both sides so we can have a better America, a better future?
Yeah, I've told that very clearly. I don't care at all. I'll work with anybody who wants to protect America and American workers and improve our standard of living. Recently, about a year ago, AOC and Ted Cruz came together on a anti-lobbying bill. Hey, that sounds like a great idea. Again, that's not a Democrat versus Republican thing. And one of the things I keep
Right.
saying is that Democrats and Republicans of the past, they have blood on their hands. And I'm not looking to get into this big, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican thing. Let's fight to get those good jobs from China back here. Let's get our monetary situation under control. These and others, like the good school systems, these are things that shouldn't be Democrat versus Republican.
Right, absolutely. And what a lot of the conversation that I'm having with people is we paint a lot of, and I would just say we paint the president, we paint Donald Trump as the boogeyman, but we're
Yeah.
not going out, especially when you look at what Cube is doing with the contract with Black America. He's saying, I'm going to go to both sides and try to work out a plan because Black Americans have been disenfranchised. It's not like something that just popped out of the blue. It's not like we're complaining. It's just
Yeah.
saying we want to be able to close certain gaps that we've been denied for my ancestors and my great grandparents and stuff like that has been denied. So when you see that, are you willing to work on particular things like the contract with Black America?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'll say I've read the contract for Black America. There are, when I think about America and what's happened in the last 100 years, in fact, it goes really well into a conversation I had just yesterday at a barber shop. A young lady says at the barber shop, she says, I don't want anything special. A young Black lady. I don't want anything special. I just want equal stuff that the white people in America have. And I said, I'm right there with you. And then there's a group of about 12 of us, and then her, so I guess 13 of us. And we're sitting there, and we talk about the last 100 years from Woodrow Wilson to FDR to Lyndon Johnson and the Great Society. And we talk about how this poverty trap has come into America, where there's the projects, and there's the food stamps, and there are all these social programs. And over the last 100 years, it's now captured the majority of Black America and not the majority of white America. And she starts to be like, oh, okay, I see it. And I'm like, the problem is not that we need more money and like more welfare. It's that we need to get rid of these strings that are attached to these social programs, these welfare programs. Because the truth is, man, if you look at who put these in, these absolutely were racist old white men 100 years ago that strategically put these in order to capture a lot of the Black Americans at the time. And, I mean, I'm sure you know the deal. There are certain programs where it's more advantageous for a woman to be by herself without a man in the house.
Right.
There are some strings attached where as soon as you get to this level of wealth, boom, you drop even worse off to where you were before. And so that's what I'm trying to get at. I think Ice Cube has a few points in that plan he's got that I think would really achieve that idea, where that welfare system, that dependency on welfare can get broken. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think it's too crazy. As long as there isn't a lot of favoring one side or the other, because I think that's also what's building a lot of animosity, is where one group of Americans perceives another group of Americans is getting a special deal.
And just to talk about that, I'm gonna just bring up representation because I'm on the contract for Black America, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about. Is particularly, and like you said, you've been talking to different people in different barbershops and stuff like that, and every Black American has their own thought about where we were and where we should be, and exactly as far as reparations. Some people are for reparations that are Black. Some people are against reparations that are Black.
Yeah.
This is something that he said. I just want you to speak on it. He said this is the bill to guarantee Black opportunity and representation. So he says adopt a plan of neo-reconstruction to regress or redress past wrongs systematically imposed on Black Americans economically throughout many generations that has resulted in a wealth gap where the average white family has 10 times the wealth of a Black family, in addition to some of the economic incentives listed below. Also, formally apologizing to Black Americans for past discrimination in slavery. Additionally, Black opportunity and representation will include affirmative action in schools, public and private, per student funding in states of equal basis instead of paid by local property tax, Black representation of government civil rights bodies, civil rights classes, mandatory in elementary schools, gerrymandering reform and additional polling places in Black and minority neighborhoods, Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday. So that's just really that's just the representation part. Again, if you read the contract for Black America, it's 22 pages of this
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm not going to go over 22 pages in
Yeah.
30 minutes. But just that, can you speak to that as far as like that's the thing that okay, I can get with that. What do you
Yeah.
feel about what he's saying in that closing that wealth gap and representation in all forms of government, private and public?
As long as it's voluntary, as long as it's not some mandatory there have to be this many black men and women in all, because again, that's going to throw off some type of equal shot for other people. What about Mexican Americans or Vietnamese Americans, that type of thing. However, Juneteenth as a holiday, I'll be honest with you, man, I didn't know about Juneteenth until this year, and I was actually pretty shocked. And I actually am not even opposed to it being a holiday. I think it's a pretty cool idea. The civil rights in American history class, I'm cool with that. There's a lot of American history that I feel like we're dumbing down our students by not teaching them a lot of the good and the bad. More polling places, that doesn't seem controversial to me. I'm trying to think, what were a couple of the other points in that?
Well, the affirmative action in schools, public and
Mm.
private, per student funding in states on an equal basis instead of paid by local property taxes.
Um, I have to think about that. Affirmative action in schools, public and private.
And I believe what he's saying
Yeah, let me
is
think
that
about that one.
and this is something that I watch a lot of Dr. Boyce Watkins.
Yeah.
He talks about a lot of times when you have non-blacks teachers in schools in the inner city and the biases that can come with that, and having more teachers of color, black, Hispanic, or whatever, but more teachers that look more like the students. Kind of like how a lot of times we talk about policing, or we need more policing that look like us in our city. Not to say that, oh, we're going to do more crimes. It's a relatable type of atmosphere. So I think that's what he's saying when he says affirmative action. Make sure you
Okay.
hire more black teachers in black
Okay.
schools.
Okay, so I see that. That makes I see where that line of thought comes. That makes sense. I guess the question would be, why do we not have more young black men and women going to school to become teachers?
And it could be and to me, it's probably the economic portion of that. That
I
I
think
can't
so
make a
too.
lot of money as a teacher. And
Uh-huh.
of course, like I said in the last podcast, I advocate hard for my teachers because I feel like teachers should get paid. It's
Yeah.
no reason why teachers should not get, the money that I make putting on car parts, and they have degrees and they're going down there my kids to become better, but they're not getting the adequate pay as far as what they have. So that could be it.
Yeah.
It could be, it could be a level of a number of things. But to me, until a teacher comes on and say, "Nah, that ain't it," I'm only speaking for what I could perceive because I don't
Yeah.
know because I'm not a teacher.
I think we really need. I think. I think Ice Cube and the plan he put together. His intentions are good. I think his intentions are good, but I think that there might be some misplaced ideas and action points he's got, because I think some of this stuff right now is so deeply seated within us. I think a lot of this, man, is things you can't pass laws for. I think a
Hmm.
lot of this comes from the family. A lot of this comes from encouraging our kids. A lot of this
Hmm.
comes from getting young men and women to actively participate and become more educated and active members of society. I'm
Hmm.
all for equal opportunities and equal treatment of all citizens, but I'm very weary about when we make special programs for certain individuals and these types of things. In fact, I know we'll talk about this in a little bit.
Hmm.
So, like the reparations thing you had mentioned earlier. So I get it. I've seen some people mention $100,000 per Black American citizen, or even more. But okay, so you do that, but did that really solve the problem? Did that really help that individual to learn how money works?
Well,
Did
Well,
that
I mean,
help
yeah,
that
and
individual?
which I agree with you on. I do agree with you on that because you don't have a lot of people that's educating as far as money management and different things like that, especially when you have someone working from check to check. So
Yeah.
that I do understand, but then on the flip side of that, you have to allow that individual to be able to make the choices that I mean, the choices with their money that they have, whether they take that $100,000 and invest in the stock market, or they
Yeah.
take that $100,000, $1,000. That's to me, that's on them. But then
Yeah.
again, when you have reparations like the Japanese Americans got reparations for what happened in Japan during World War II. Nobody said, well, what are they going to do with their money?
Yeah.
So I don't feel like it's the person or the government saying, well, what are you going to do with it? Well, give it to me and let me see, let me try it.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, if you gave me $100,000 now, I know where I'm going to invest it, and this show is going to look a whole lot better than what it is right now because we'll be talking face to face. But then again, that's my own thing. Someone might not see that and say, well, that's not lucrative. Well, you don't know what lucrative is until I get the money in my hand and let me do something with it.
Yep, yep. And now the other question is, okay, so let's say you get the money. Will that make in your head, in your heart, will that make the black community feel equal? Or will that make them feel like, okay, we're all good now. Everybody's even now. Or will we still have this conversation of inequality? I don't know. But like I
I
said,
I I I don't know. Only reason I'm saying I don't know is because the simple fact is we haven't had it. We haven't
yeah.
had America has not had the talk. Like how I have to have the talk with my teenage kids and say you can't do certain things when you're out and you're driving with your friends, or you're hanging out with your friends, or you see the police. And I believe because of division or or bigotry or racism or whatever, America has not had that talk about this is what we went through. We went through Reconstruction. We went through slavery. We thought black people were three-fifths human. We went through that. We're trying to get to here, kind of almost like what happened in Germany. I read the story in Germany that they educated their kids about the Holocaust and the things that happened with the Jews and why we shouldn't repeat those type of things. I don't think 100% we haven't had that conversation on both sides of the line. I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah.
So
Well, you
let
know
me
what?
ask you
Maybe
this.
once this
Oh, go
virus
ahead.
thing
I'm sorry.
clears
Go
up,
ahead.
you and I can sit down and start that and really get at least
Right.
a basis that people can say, "Hey, at least Dre Mack and Ryan had started it."
Right, absolutely. Now let me go to this. Let me go to prison reform, and this is
Okay.
another thing that we're also talking about. And this is deeply in my heart, also as far as prison reform, because I've seen my dad go through the scorns of the judicial system, and a first-time offender getting a flat 20 years for stealing a TV should not happen nowhere in America. So
Right.
this is his vision of prison reform, and this is something that I also agree with. Also, it said properly run prisons will be abolished. Prison labor disallowed without consent, and non-violent offenders incarcerated for 10 years or longer will be free if good behavior standards are met. All prisoners for marijuana possessions are freed. First offense for illegal drugs use or possession to require the government payment for entry into an approved drug rehabilitation program rather than imprisonment. Once any prisoner completes a sentence, voting rights are restored. I'm 100% on that. How do you feel on that?
Dre Mack, not only am I 100% on that, but let me describe when I told you earlier. I've read this plan he put together, and I think
Mm-hmm.
his intention is good, but I don't think he understands the system well enough in certain aspects, and here's why. Not only am I completely on board with all of those things, but all of those things could be achieved by simply doing two things. One, repealing Joe Biden's 1994 and 1995
Absolutely.
crime bill. Okay,
Absolutely.
private prisons, policing for profit, meaning police departments got money from the government for every arrest, mandatory minimums, and
Mm-hmm.
then let's see, policing for profit, mandatory minimums. Militarization of the police. That was
Mm-hmm.
all in those crime bills right there. Then you go just a few
Right.
years before
Absolutely.
that. Why did we have that crime bill? Because the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act law,
Mm-hmm.
meaning the war on drugs. You end the war on drugs and you focus on mental health and rehab, and you repeal that crime bill. Boom, that entire vision he's put together is already achieved. And I'm not, like, dude, I have one of my good friends up in Chicago, okay? One of my best friends for 15 years. Last year, he had a couple of bad weeks. He tried meth, and now for the last year and a half, his entire life has been consumed by trying to find meth. He's in and out of jail. He doesn't have a job. He's a complete waste. The dude needs to be involuntarily put into a prison of a reform, a mental health facility for like 3 to 6 months, and then turn him out. He's cost the city of Chicago more in a year and a half than he would have if they had this program type of thing in place. So I am completely on board with it.
Yes. And with this contract for Black America, I'm gonna say this. I'm not speaking for Ice Cube, but just watching interview after interview after interview. He's saying this is what we would like to have to present to you. You're trying to go into Congress. We're voting November 3rd. You get enough votes. You go into Congress. You go into the House. You can present those particular things because, hey, I sat down and talked in these neighborhoods. I sat down and talked with different people in this rural area that go through the same thing. And I told you I was the corrections officer for 3.5 years. I seen more people in rural areas in jails and local jails for drugs more than you had, Black people. So those things could go really hand in hand, not just with just Black Americans, but white Americans going through the same scourges in rural areas and stuff like that also.
And one of the side effects, keep in mind, dude, that not a lot of people consider is think about the police. The police have to police for drug offenses. They have to police for mental health issues. They have to. How much less weight would be on the shoulder of our police if we could get this thing resolved? That would also help the relationship between the community and the police.
Absolutely. Now, as far as when we're talking about police reform, we also are looking at judicial reform also. So I think the big three talking points that I talk to a lot of people is, of course, we're looking at the civil unrest. We're looking at the things that happened with George Floyd and all other African Americans who have been unjustly shot and killed by the police. So we need those type of reforms. What can you go to the table in the House and say, look, these are the things that need to be reformed? We talked about Joe Biden's crime bill. What other things have you seen that could be reformed so we could be able to have a better judicial system that is not incarcerating one particular race over another and different things like that?
Man, I am weary about applying a lot of things at the federal level. I think a lot of these need to be done at the state, like no-knock raids. Personally, I'm against the idea of no-knock raids, but I think that needs to be done at the states rather than at the federal level. I think what I could do the best is what we talked about a moment ago. Rather than going up to Washington, D.C. and passing new laws, just start fixing and removing the laws that we have on place, like that crime bill, like the war on drugs. So before I just start saying, like, I want to pass this law of reform and this law reform, and this isn't, I know it might sound like a political answer because I'm not directly answering or offering a solution, but it's the truth. I want to be weary about going up there and passing new laws before we fix the ones that we already have in the books that are causing a lot of chaos. Absolutely. And again, we talked about this, but I've also talked to a good friend of mine, Ryan Derks and Joshua Gant and these other people, just having conversations again, just political conversations. And that's the biggest thing is everyone's talking about when you look at Biden, and even if you looked at the debate, Donald Trump asked him, you had 8 years, why you didn't get it done? And then also on the flip side of that, I was thinking, you're right. You're absolutely correct. He was the vice president. He could have went to the president, and said, hey, we need these things done. Yes.
Things weren't done. It wasn't presented, from the state or federal side. Nothing was done. So now we have 4 years of Donald Trump. Nothing that we get. That still is still on the table. 94 guys are one away. What can you as a Republican present to Congress to say, you know what, uh, this needs to be fixed? It is kind of going back to the same question, but how would that look? How would that be represented? Because I don't think a lot of people know about government that much. So how does that get handled?
Yeah, man, that is such a good point, Dre, and I think that's another reason Emmanuel Cleaver does not want to debate me, because I'll sit there and he'll say, well, this is my idea, and I'll say, you've had 15 years. You're really
Right,
trying to
absolutely.
convince me in your 16th year that you're going to try this now? Excuse me. So here's a few of the things. The way the government works, you have the House side and you have the Senate side. The House and the
Right,
Senate both have to get each side to vote yes on a law. The laws have to be the
absolutely.
same, and if they get voted yes on, then they go up to president to be signed. So let's say,
Right,
for example, I make a law that says repeal that '94 crime bill. It has to get
right.
it has to get passed in the House, then in the Senate,
House
and then
first.
go up to the president, right? So now,
Right.
what are a few things I would personally like to work on? Ending the wars overseas. We're
Mm-hmm.
dropping bombs for 19 years on Iraq and Afghanistan. Let's take that money into those wars and put that back into our cities, rebuild our neighborhoods, rebuild our streets and our schools and our train stations and airports. That's one. And again, it's a simple legislative action. The one we've already described, the criminal justice, prison reform, ending the war on drugs and ending that crime bill. That's a 1-2 shot right there.
Mm-hmm.
These are two of the biggest, and the third biggest one is education. I genuinely believe no matter what we do to try to help citizens in America or repair relations in America, I almost feel like we all just need to write off our own lives and focus on the next generation. And the next generation's education is where it starts, man. And these things
Mm-hmm.
like No Child Left Behind and Common Core and these other federal requirements and federal intrusion into your children's school, it's got to go. Again, it was only as recent as 1980, and we can go back to how it used to be. So I'd like to present a bill that says repeal the Federal Department of Education in its current form and send it right down to all 50 states. Missouri already has a Department of Education. All 50 states do. And let 50 different states experiment on how the best way to educate our kids are. So
So would you?
those are the three
Oh,
big ones that, as a congressman, I can stand up there and bark like a junkyard dog to get people's attention. But then, truthfully, it's on you, man. After that, it's
right.
on you, the citizens of America, to make a loud calling that everybody vote and take action on it.
So, as we're talking about Emmanuel Cleaver, what are some of the things that you would do differently? Like I said, if you get in, you could be in there for 15 years. What are some of the things you're going to do differently than what Emmanuel Cleaver has done in the last 15 years?
Well, here's one of them. For example, the country, we have a budget, right? We spend money. That
Right.
is the responsibility of the U.S. House of Representatives. That's not the responsibility of the Senate. So Emmanuel Cleaver's had 15 years to try to get responsible spending, balance the budget, stop spending so much money, let the citizens keep their own money. That's something I'll gladly fight for. I haven't seen him make that fight at all. The wars overseas, I already mentioned. He's had 15 years to say, hey, you guys, I think enough's enough. I think we need to end these wars. He never has. In fact, for 4 years, he's called Trump a tyrant, a dictator. But all 4 years, Trump asks for a military budget increase. He votes yes. It doesn't make sense at all. A lot of it is politics. A lot of it is owing people favors. I don't
Mm-hmm.
owe anyone favors. The state party isn't helping me. The federal party isn't helping me. It's really just you and me right here on this
Right.
campaign. So those are the things. Another big thing that people don't realize, and I've heard this from the rural parts of Missouri, that they say, like, Cleaver never talks to us and he never comes out here. So the USDA, over the last 30 or so years, has been slowly bought out by China and Brazil. And they are getting rules and regulations passed that make it way too expensive for the American cattle farmer to operate. So right now, the chicken industry is owned by China. The pork industry is owned by China, and the beef industry is almost owned by Brazil. And so what that means is if China and Brazil want to use our food supply as their own personal weapon, they can. So that's another fight I'd like to pick, is with the USDA cutting the size and the influence of it, so that, again, just like we were talking about the 94 crime bill, back in 1967, the USDA passed this thing called the Wholesome Meat Act. And it was supposed to be this thing that made slaughterhouses cleanly and, friendly and accessible. Well, what it did was it made it way too expensive and hard for your average Joe to run a slaughterhouse. So in 1960, with a population of about 40 million Americans, we had 10,000 slaughterhouses. Today, with 300 some million people, we have almost 2,000 slaughterhouses. And China and Brazil own a majority of them. So again,
Now,
I haven't seen Cleaver pick that fight.
Right. And now you're saying, Brazil and China own these industries. How was they able to buy into these industries? Was it lobbyists from Washington saying, hey, I would say some, because if you're buying something that extravagant, you're paying someone who's passing laws. So how does that, how do we fix that? How do we change that?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. So there are lobbyists involved, but basically what's happened, if you walk through the grocery store and you see Smithfield, that's China. A Chinese company bought Smithfield, the American food producer. Farmland, which has their logo, is that it looks like a little farm in the blue sky and the sun. That's owned by China. That's another Chinese company that bought them a few years ago. And dude, if you look at it, I think Smithfield got bought for like $4 billion or something, like some massive amount. And what people don't realize is on the back end, what's going on in China is that China, the way their government operates is that there's no big company that operates without the blessing of the federal government. So the federal government is strategically working with these Chinese companies to acquire companies around the world. So, for example, Farmland and Smithfield, the Chinese government, through a Chinese company, bought Smithfield. So that's how it's gotten to this point. They basically have the Chinese treasury to buy whatever company they want right now. So that's how it's gotten to this point.
Wow. So we got the election coming up. A lot of people don't know you, and I know you've asked this. You had to ask this question, or have someone ask you this question like over and over again over the past month. Why should people vote for Ryan Derks?
The reason, Dre Mac, is because people like you and I are not supposed to be in politics. The people in politics are supposed to be lifetime corrupt politicians. They're supposed to be very politically correct. They're supposed to be very polished. Everything that I have done on this campaign has been me. I've said stupid stuff. I've made mistakes. I've said good stuff. I've done good things, but it's always been me, man. When I make an honest mistake, I apologize for it. When I don't think I've made an honest mistake, but the internet mob still comes after me, I won't apologize for it. But it is time for people like you and I, especially in our generation, to quit bitching and complaining and canceling each other and shaming each other and protesting. And it's time to get active and involved. And man, I think I said this last time. I don't claim to have all the answers. All I know is that my answers are fundamentally going to be revolving around, does it give Dre Mac and his family more personal freedom and more personal liberty or less? And when these lobbyists come up and try to say, hey man, here's $100,000 if you vote for this bill, I'm going to say, screw you. I don't want this money. You didn't help me get elected. The Republican Party didn't help me get elected. So that's why I think people should vote for me. Emmanuel Cleaver has had 15 years to go and make a big change. Maybe he went in with good intentions, but regardless, I think he's spent enough time up in D.C. It's time to change the guard and time to let some young blood get in there and try some new ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then we talked a little bit before the show, and you said some things that people didn't like, and I know that I received inbox from someone that took a screenshot. I think this is from LinkedIn, where you said, so this is what we do on LinkedIn now. We cheer the shaming of white men. How does this help anyone? How does this bring anyone together? It is so easy to shoulder problems in America on white men. It's far more difficult to tell the truths of why certain demographics are not all perfectly equal, especially when you consider things like biology and culture. I'm afraid LinkedIn has turned into one giant virtual signal echo, and I think you were responding to Aaron Falker or whatever the conversation was. Can you speak a
Yep.
little bit about that so we clear the air on that for some people
Yeah,
who are
of
probably
course. So first off, let me make it clear that as that went viral, I invited publicly the 2 or 3 people who are sharing that around the most. I invited them to do a live stream, open dialogue, so that we could clear the air. But all 3 of them said, no, your ideas are so dangerous, they don't deserve a public forum. What I was saying there, Dre, and that's why I didn't apologize for this, man, because I don't have anything to apologize for. In
Mhm.
America, the meme of old rich white men are the problem. It's played out, man. It's played out. There are things. Culture. There are cultural things, biology. Now they twisted that and said culture means black people versus white people, and biology means men versus women. You know, what about IQ? What about disabilities? Those are biology. What about culture, Dre? White people from Hungary have a different culture than white people from South Africa, who have a different culture from white people in Canada. What about white people who are Amish? They have a different culture than white people like me, right?
Mhm.
And what I shouldn't have done is stopped there. I could have gone to geography. I could have gone to language. I could have gone to religion. The Muslim faith is far different from the Amish faith, which is far different from the Buddhist faith. There are
Mhm.
so many different things going on in the world that to just say, oh, it's all white men. I get what you mean, but that's far too simplistic. Now, let me be clear when I put it this way, okay? All men are created equal. All men
Mhm.
deserve equal opportunities to pursue their interests, and all men deserve to be treated equally.
Right.
But in a free society like America, the more free we are, the less equal we will be. The more free that we are to pursue whatever interests us, the less equal we will be. For example, a basketball to LeBron James is worth a few $1 billion. A basketball to me is worth nothing because I'm terrible at basketball, dude.
Right.
But I'm not upset about that. You know, a computer to Mark Zuckerberg is worth however many billions he's worth now. A computer to me
Right.
isn't worth nearly that much. All I'm
Right.
saying is that when we come out like this and we say, "Oh, old rich white men" or something like that, and that's what I said. Like, how is this helping, man? How is this
Right.
bringing us together? I don't think that this one-off digital mob mentality, cancel culture, is helping anything. And that's why I haven't
Right.
stood down. I have not apologized, and I won't. And that's why I publicly 3 different times invited those 3 individuals to do a live stream. Hey, let's just hash this out. Because at the end of the day, man, I don't care if you're black, white, or whatever color. I don't care if you're gay or straight. I don't care if you're man or woman. I don't. We have so much more in common than we have different that we have to keep
Right.
talking, and we cannot just do this. We cannot cover our ears and
Right.
say, "I don't want to hear it." I love what you're doing right here because this is open dialogue, man. This is what it's all about. And I find that when you and I talk like this and we have these open dialogues, we have so much more in common. So that's what the LinkedIn thing's about. And I wish that those individuals would have said yes, because I'm sure we would have been able to bury the hatchet.
Right. And do you feel and I'm gonna get ready to wrap this up because I don't want to hold you too long.
Okay.
But do you believe that the cancel culture is the reason why we still have the not the dialogue that we need to be able to get past racist mindset or bigoted, theories or whatever. Why we can't work together? Why we still have if you're not a Democrat, if you're black, you have to be a Democrat. You can't be a
Yeah.
Republican or vice versa or whatever.
Yeah, man, that's a great question. There's a part of that's part of it. Part of it has to do with people who really are trying to get the likes on Instagram and Facebook, that
Mhm.
social media addiction. Part of it has to do with there are people who make a career out of seeing racism everywhere. And let's imagine, for example, if tomorrow we all racism was eliminated, there'd be an entire industry of people whose career it is to push, all this stuff, who would be out of a job. So there are people who just there's also just, Americans, black, white, and every color in between, who have been brainwashed as growing up that, this person is out to get you. So I don't know, man, there's a lot of factors. And kind of like I said earlier, a moment ago, the more simplistic the answer, the less I tend to believe it, because there are just so many data points and intricacies in this thing we do that's called life. So I don't have a good answer as to why this keeps happening, but I know that we need to pump the brakes on it and keep having open dialogue like you and I are doing right now.
Right. Absolutely. And that's one thing that I feel that we need to continue to have these conversations. We can have, like I said, and a lot of us, we got this thing as far as Black Americans, and I could just speak for myself, is that when you're beaten down so much of you're not going to be this and you're not going to be that, or you come from a certain type of environment, but that environment is literally check to check. You have to be able to make it, or some days you're going to be eating commodity. If you get some chicken one day, that's a blessing. So when we get to a certain point where we feel free, now that mindset is that, oh, now you're my enemy just because you're the color of your skin, I'm the color of my skin. You have a demographic in the suburbs, I have a demographic from the projects. So now we think we can't work together because we don't have that we're failing to have that conversation to see, like you said, we're more alike than we are different. And I would tell anyone, if you take a test to see if you're more conservative, Black people are more conservative than they are liberal. I don't care what you take that. Just go there through the list of what it takes to be conservative, and you will say, you know what? I didn't know that I'm liberal on something. I'm more conservative than you think. It's not about Republican or Democrat. It's about values, and the values that we are raised at, and the values that we can be able to get across, not only for myself, but for my children, and to be able to interact and have this dialogue without having to feel animosity or you're here and I'm here.
Absolutely, man. And if I can, I'll leave the last word with your viewers like this. I'm 33. When I was 24, I worked multiple jobs, sun up to early in the morning, saving every penny. And the reason was because once I saved up enough money, I went backpacking. I left the country for 7 months, and I went backpacking across Europe and the Middle East and Asia. And after 7 months, I had gone through and spent time in 28 different countries. And since then, I've been to 44 different countries. And you know what I see, man? People talk about privilege, especially this year, white privilege and that. American privilege, man. We have no idea how good we have it here. Even the worst off in America still has opportunities that people in other countries can't hope to have. There's a reason people make rafts out of out of trees and like empty plastic bottles to get here. And I've seen some really, really, really dark stuff around the world, man. And I just want everybody at home to know, everybody around the world that I've seen, we all want the same stuff. We want a better life for our friends and our family and our kids. We want to go out on holidays. We want to celebrate birthdays. We just want a decent way to live. And that's what I'm trying to help out here. And it really hurts when people twist your words or try to cancel you or spread provable lies. I mean, in the last few months, people spread provable lies, not even that LinkedIn thing, but just other stuff that's not even a good lie. So, man, I just hope that people can have some perspective at how much privilege we have just to be American.
Absolutely. And this is the reason why we do the show, y'all. This is Ryan Derks, everybody. Your round of applause.
That soundboard, dude, you are upgrading everything, aren't you?
I mean, it's the whole deal, man. It's the whole deal. But again, Ryan, I appreciate you so much for reaching out to me and being able to speak on this platform, to be able to have a different perspective of the way that we need to look at life. We need to look at each other, and the way that we need to look at politics. Also, we have a lot too much of bickering and ram heading instead of just looking at everything. And a good friend of mine, Jay Young, who's an author, just came out with a book called The Law of Subtraction. And I'm gonna just leave you with this. In this book, he said the truth is not the hard pill to swallow. Reality is. And when you just said, "Hey, I went backpacking and I seen some stuff that you probably wouldn't even imagine," that was the reality of everything. So you could take that reality and bring it back here and say, "Man, we can make it way better than what it is." And I appreciate you for coming on to the show, man.
Absolutely, man. After we win this Tuesday, we'll do it again, okay? We'll have Congressman Ryan Derks on the Dre Mack Show, all right?
That's what I'm talking about, man.
All right, bro.
Again, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much, man. Take care of yourself, man. I know you're a little sick today, man, so take care of yourself, all right?
You bet, Dre. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Again, that was Ryan Derks, man. I appreciate him coming through. Hanging with me, Wayne. Make sure you guys are going out. If you're going to vote, make sure that you vote. Make sure that you vote locally. It's not just about the presidential election. It's about everything. The local election is the biggest thing that we need to focus on. You don't like your attorney general because you've seen the things that happened in Louisville, then we need to go ahead and we can change that. We are the people. So the people have the power. As long as we use our power to be able to put people in the right people in, so we can be able to make change. That's all anybody ever wants, is the right change. So again, I thank you guys for hanging out with me. I appreciate everything. Shalom to everyone. Peace. I'm out.